The first bill on the agenda today is House File 1317 with Representative Keeler. We will be calling the roll on this bill no later than 2:05 p.m. Representative Keeler, would you like to move your bill to be re-referred to the Committee on Taxes?
Yes, Madam Chair, I would.
Thank you, Representative Keeler. To your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. I want to talk about House File 1317 as it was something that came up to me in the conversations that I've had with our teachers. I do talking circles in my community because teachers are so valuable to me. I know Representative Erickson, Representative Mueller, you all talk about your time in the classroom and how important that's been to you. What this bill does is it's hearing what our teachers have been saying. We all know that to create an amazing classroom, a lot of our teachers come out of their own pockets to create this environment that so many of us have kids who learn in. And so what this does, as you may know, there's already a teacher deduction of $250 that really only ends up putting about a $17 reduction on their tax liability. This bill, if you look at the language, is really targeted to our educators who are in their first years or in that lower pay scale as they start to set up their classroom. And it makes it into a refundable tax credit so that their actual tax bill goes down. I know that we have a long ways to go to support our teachers. They do so much. And what I heard in my community, and maybe you have all heard in yours, is we have some teachers that are spending nearly $1,000 in their classroom every year on things like pencils, Kleenexes, learning tools, but also bins and books and things that like help our kids so much. So I do have a couple testifiers here. I believe they're still able to make it. They're teachers, and we all know like how schedules go. And so I think I still have two testifiers that are here, Madam Chair, if we want to move over to them.
Thank you, Representative Keeler. First up on my list, I have Hannah Howe.
Yes, good morning or good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Please introduce yourself for the record and proceed with your testimony.
All right, good afternoon, Chair Richardson, members of the committee. My name is Hannah Howe, and I am a 6th and 7th grade social studies teacher in the Columbia Heights School District. I am here today to speak about the classroom expenses I have covered with my own money. As a new teacher, I entered my classroom 7 years ago with virtually no supplies for learning and no supplies to support a functioning classroom. I didn't have a single pencil sharpener. I didn't have any notebook paper. I had 0 writing utensils, and I didn't have any organization supplies. And that's just to name a few of the things I would need. As a young adult fresh out of college, I quickly realized that becoming a teacher would be more expensive than I realized and would be a challenge to balance financially with my first year teacher salary and my student loan payments. Columbia Heights is a high poverty district. On average, we receive nearly $1,000 fewer per student than children the same age in West Metro districts like Edina. That being said, the supplies I need to be an effective teacher must be purchased with my own money. One might argue that I could just adjust my teaching or be more creative with the supplies I do have rather than spend my own money. But to that, I would argue that my students did not ask to attend a school that is underfunded, and they did not ask to remain part of the cycle of poverty that our current public school system has helped develop. My students deserve the same opportunities as children their age in other districts, regardless of the incomes of surrounding homes. A child's education should not depend on how much their teacher is willing or able to spend on their learning supplies. As a public school educator, I cannot honestly ask parents to provide learning materials for their children when they are already challenged with paying for their own living expenses. If the state were to fully fund public schools, I would not have to spend my own money to provide students with the education they rightfully deserve. To afford the supplies I need for teaching, the supplies I need to make my classroom function as a safe learning environment, and to provide my students with meals. Yes, there are children in my school who rely on teachers for food. I have continued working a second job on the weekends and over breaks throughout my entire teaching career. As a college graduate who now has a master's degree, I never thought I would be working 2 jobs and devoting my income from my second job to buy the supplies I need to perform my career. Now, with a growing family and increasing expenses, I have to choose between supporting my own family and devoting time to my family, or continuing to work a second job to afford learning supplies for my students. This is not a choice that a teacher should be faced with, and is something that could be addressed by making the necessary changes to the tax credit for teacher expenses. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Up next, I have Karen Taylor. Please introduce yourself and proceed with your testimony.
Chair Richardson, members of the committee, good afternoon. My name is Karen Taylor. I teach 8th grade English language arts at Horizon Middle School in Moorhead. Sometimes feels like I began my teaching career in another time or an alternate reality. The students I teach at 13 or 14 years old see the 90s as ancient history. Though much has changed, the shortage of resources in schools has been consistent over the course of my career. When I began teaching in Moorhead, I spent a great deal of my own money building a classroom library because I had seen research saying kids didn't read well because they didn't read enough. And they didn't read enough because they didn't have access to books engaging to them or any time set aside for them to read. I wish I could say that with experience, I've learned how to avoid spending my personal funds on classroom supplies. Instead, I enter a state of high alert during back to school sales in order to get the absolute best prices on items I replace annually. Books, markers, colored pencils, pens, pencils, pencil grips, lead, erasers, scissors, glue, tissues, notebooks, folders, binders, papers, disinfecting wipes, granola or protein bars, lotion, cardstock, fidgets, charging cords, now hand sanitizer, and the list grows. This has become routine for me as it is for 96% of teachers nationwide who spend an average of $740 of their own funds during the 2019-2020 school year, according to adoptaclassroom.org. The same source reports that 45% of the teachers they surveyed said that their spending increased for distance learning. One of my personal colleagues spent over $1,000 first trying to make her kindergarten classroom safe for students to return, and then to make kindergarten engaging for them during distance learning. According to the Economic Policy Institute, teachers working with students in poverty will spend even more personal funds to supply what helps their students to learn. I have 5 kids of my own. At present, I'm a single parent receiving no child support for the youngest 2. Even so, I am better prepared to absorb the expense of restocking my classroom than the teachers around me who are early in their careers. According to the NEA, starting wages for Minnesota teachers rank 21st in the nation, 20th for teachers overall. While teacher salaries nationwide have increased 11.2% since the 2008-2009 school year, when adjusted for inflation, teachers are taking home 4.5% less than 10 years ago. 1 of 5 starting teachers works a second job to provide for themselves, try to pay off their student loans, and apparently buy supplies for their students. HF13 seems like one way to say thank you to the teachers investing in Minnesota's kids. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. No one signed up for public testimony. If there is anyone on the Zoom who wishes to speak for or against the bill, please unmute yourself and say so now. Okay, hearing none, we will move on to member discussion. And I am not currently seeing any hands raised at all?
Madam Chair, my hand raise function's not there. I'm sorry. Would I be able to say something?
Of course, Representative Edelson.
Thank you. I apologize. And thank you, Representative Keeler, for bringing this bill. The teacher, Mrs. Howe, had brought up Edina, and I want to thank her for her testimony. I actually went to Columbia Heights for high school, so value her work and represent Edina now. And right now, Edina has education funds and give and goes. They're private funds that we're able to work to help teachers, as well as PTOs that do this. So, but not every district can do that. And I want to thank you for this bill. It's really important. And it goes to value the teachers that work so hard for our districts. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Edelson. Representative Poston.
Thank you, Chair. I think that Mr. Uni is on the call, and I have a question for him if you would take it.
Mr. Uni.
Yep, Madam Chair, I am here.
Okay, great. Representative Poston, your question.
Thank you very much. Adosh, I'm curious if the department is looking at this and looking at what teachers are spending their own money on and considering whether or not we should be providing those supplies. Is there anything being done to look at this?
Mr. Uni.
Madam Chair, Representative Poston, just for the record, I'll introduce myself, Adosh Uni, Director of Government Relations for Minnesota Department of Education. Thank you for the question. I do not believe, and I'll have to go back and check on this. This is a good question. I know that there is probably some research out there that shows what the spread is across different states and quite possibly in Minnesota. I don't think that we actually track this, as this is personal expenditures by teachers, and I don't think, but I know that we can talk to the Department of Revenue and see what the amount is that they track for those that are applying for the credit and see what we can get there. But I think that would either be hosted at the Department of Revenue, or I can go and talk to our finance team.
Representative Poston.
Thank you. If you will just follow up on that, I would really appreciate it. Thank you, Adosh, and thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Representative Poston. Representative Erickson.
Madam Chair, sorry, can I jump? I do have a response if I can jump in.
Representative Keeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Poston, so this is what I have from the Department of Revenue that they gave me in preparation for the bill when it comes to talking about looking back at the classroom supplies. And again, they're looking back way into 2011 and 2012 school year. The Economic Policy Institute found that the average teacher in Minnesota spends $375 of their own money in their classroom, but that's again through the widespread of teachers. I was trying to get it broke down into teachers in the income range of how much they're tracking, but also we've never had the opportunity to track. A lot of teachers indicate that they spend more, but then they don't keep the receipts and break it down in taxes because of the way that the tax credit has been set up. That's the best that I have. And I can look into it more too as I dig into the bill a bit more.
Representative Poston.
Thank you, Representative. You know, I guess just a question or a thought, are they having to buy additional supplies that they do get some of, or are these supplies that we don't provide them at all that they need for their classrooms? I think we should probably look at that and find that out.
Representative Keeler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Poston, from the conversations that I've had, and I don't know if other people have had conversations in their communities, but these typically are not things that school districts supply enough of. You know, you might be able to go down to a supply closet and grab a couple markers and a couple crayons and some things, but adequately to be able to supply them for our entire classrooms, and also like the bins that they need and the book libraries that they're talking about. From what I have gathered in the conversations that I've had with teachers across my community and state, these are not things that are typically covered by the school.
Thank you, Representative Keeler. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Poston. Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative Keeler, for this increase and the differences that you're making for the educator expense credit. I never had a situation like this, but I know it has happened since my early days in the classroom. What we have done in our area of the state where we have active VFWs and American Legion clubs is put out an all call before school starts, not only for supplies for the children, and I tell you, we just collect tons and tons of supplies for the children, but we have also recommended that there also be another bin for teacher supplies. So staplers and pens and pencils and paper. Chalk used to be popular. Of course, it isn't anymore. So it's markers, for smartboards, etc. But that's something we can look to. I think the credit, the refundable credit, is fine. It's going to help a beginning teacher especially. But we also need to look to our communities because they need to understand that sometimes the school budget does not allow for supplies for a teacher. And, to call attention to that, you can rally what I would say are the troops, the VFW and the American Legion in our communities. My auxiliary in Princeton is extremely generous in what we provide. And I know the VFW in Princeton and Malacca and Onamia does likewise. So, we can look to the service organizations to help. And I think chambers of commerce also band together. We always do welcoming bags for our teachers. And I know what I've put in my welcoming bag for the new teachers in my districts are those kinds of supplies. So we can look to other methods, but I think the credit is a good move. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Erickson. Representative Keeler, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Erickson. The quote comes to mind, "We are more alike than we are unalike." As you mentioned that you're part of an auxiliary, I'm a part of an auxiliary too. And I do know that giving back to our communities is so important. I think this is just one of the strands of the braid that we need to support our classrooms, that there's a piece that the school district comes in, and that our community comes in, and this is that third strand that our teachers step up and provide for our kids. And so it's really coming together collectively to provide the best education system that we can. So I appreciate your support and your suggestions are great.
Thank you, Representative Keeler. Representative Feist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was basically just going to say what Representative Keeler just said, but I just think this is a great bill. And I think that it is about all of the strands coming together, the community and the state and the teachers. And I just see this as a really important way that we, the state, can support our teachers and our schools. And while it's wonderful that community organizations also provide that support, I think it's important just as the state to fund our schools and make sure that this money isn't coming out of our teachers' pockets. So thank you.
Thank you, Representative Feist. Representative Keeler, I'll give you the last word on your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to everybody for listening. Again, more than anything, I want to thank the teachers. You all have done an amazing job through this pandemic and continue to show up for our kids. I know that the costs have gone up out of your pocket. So to the teachers here and the teachers that are watching, we value you, we see you, and we appreciate you. And I appreciate any support. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Keeler. Representative Keeler renews her motion to re-refer House File 1317 to taxes. The clerk will take the roll.
Chair Richardson?
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan? Representative Erickson?
Aye.
Representative Drazkowski?
Aye.
Representative Bennett?
Aye.
Representative Berg?
Aye.
Representative Bowe? Excused. Representative Christensen?
Aye.
Representative Edelson?
Aye.
Representative Feist?
Aye.
Representative Frazier?
Aye.
Representative Jordan?
Aye.
Representative Keeler?
Aye.
Representative Moeller?
Aye.
Representative Mueller?
Mueller votes yes.
Representative Poston?
Aye.
Representative Scott?
Aye.
Representative Erdahl?
Aye.
Representative Wozlowick,
Aye.
Vice Chair Hassan, Madam Chair, there are 16 ayes and 0 nays.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. Or Representative Keeler, rather, you are on your way to taxes. The motion prevails.